That's the side of Chris Potter you've probably seen the most of on the internet, but you probably haven't seen this side.
The dream is the dream. Things are not as they seem. That's as far as I got. But I knew I was going to be playing it on the saxophone, so that was fine anyway. It didn't matter. So.
So as I get ready for Ground Up Festival, which is next week in Miami, Florida, this is Snarky Puppy's music festival we've been hosting since 2016 or so, I came across some footage I'd forgotten about of when Chris Potter was our guest artist in residence. So he performed with most of the people at the festival. Did workshops and master classes.
The feeling is that you're following the music where it wants to go, and then you don't get lost. I mean, it's an abstract thing because you're the one creating it, so I guess it's going wherever you want it to go. But the way to do it seems to be to lose the idea of yourself and what you want.
Sat in with Snarky Puppy. And I forgot I had this amazing video of the night that he was part of a songwriters circle where everybody got up and played. The people who were part of that, they performed a song, but they broke it down, they talked about it, they talked about their process, and I have Chris doing this. So he plays it on saxophone, but he also plays it first on Fender Rhodes, and he explains it, and he talks about his process, and it's just beautiful, and I just wanted to share it with you because it's really incredible.
Something that I've evolved over the years to maybe look at it in a different way than where I started, but well, maybe not. I mean, music, it's all about feelings. It's all about communicating a state of mind that can't be communicated just by saying normal words in a normal tone of voice or whatever. So when there's no words, the disadvantage, I guess, is that the level of abstraction is so high that there's not the immediate, it's talking about a love affair or this, but the advantage is that it can mean whatever anyone wants it to mean to them, in maybe a wider way, So how do you approach writing? The thing that I've found is most satisfying is to think of it from just a mood, just a feeling, and to make it as simple as possible. There's songs that we all love to improvise on that jazz musicians have been improvising on since the beginning of the music. Are standards, which are often like Broadway show tunes, which weren't designed originally to be improvised on, but there's just something about the fact that they are about something, that they were originally written as a song to further the development of the story, and then as a piece of music on its own, but that it's about something specific, and there's a need for the melody to be very strong and for the harmony to be strong in a certain way, but also not overly long or complex, and somehow the level of the degree of complexity and the degree of simplicity of standards make them fun to play, 500 times rather than 3 or 4. You know what I mean? So I always think about when I'm writing my own music, how is it possible to write something that's durable like that I'm going to enjoy playing, years down the road, maybe, In the same way, the great jazz composers definitely do this, Wayne Shorter, Footprints, it's really, really simple, but it's so strong, and he's got, many, many, many others, obviously, Thelonious Monk, Duke Ellington, Billy Strayhorn. We're able to communicate these things with just melodies and harmonies, So I was going to do a tune that I wrote a few years back, and usually I find it useful now to write in very rapidly, come up with an idea without thinking, if at all possible. I know if I'm thinking, then it's not going to be that great. I also noticed, this is a weird thing, I noticed that if I fall in love with it immediately, it's not great. It's like a problem. It's a problem. There's some problem with it, and I'm compensating by this thing. It's a weird thing. I've noticed it so many times. Anyway, but so the song that I'm going to do was actually the title of an album that came out a few years ago. It's called "The Dreamer Is the Dream," right? And it came from a very short burst of just writing it kind of almost as fast as I could play it, and just to so you can hear it with the harmony. And it doesn't have words, but the reason I called it that is because I actually kind of did hear words for the first 2 phrases, and I never bothered to write words for the whole thing, but it's like, so it's. But I knew I was going to be playing it on the saxophone, so that was fine anyway. It didn't matter. So, that's the tune. And I'll perform a solo version on the instrument that I actually play.
I've been a big Chris Potter fan for decades, but you have to understand that when I first discovered Chris, he was really young. I mean, I was young and he was young, and so the albums that really impacted me the most, they may not be the ones you're familiar with. I mean, I have a whole line of CD cases full of not only albums of his, but albums he was a sideman on back in the 1990s. I can't believe I have to say the 1990s, not just the 90s, back in the 90s. Back in the late 1900s, as my kids like to tell me. It was actually my best friend, Juan Roland. We had just met 10th grade in high school together. Chris Potter came to our attention because Juan was shopping at a Coconuts Records in the bargain bin, and he was looking for something for his dad for Father's Day. And he finds this album by a trumpet player, Red Rodney. And the album's called Red Alert. He had no idea who the rest of the band was, including a very young saxophonist by the name of Chris Potter. I believe at the time of this album, of this recording, Chris Potter was 19, maybe he was 20 years old. And the album is incredible. There's definitely some dated stuff on it. I think they do a version of Moose the Mooch with a rapper by the name of Charles White Lightning Tellurant or something like that, if memory serves. It's been a long time. I worshipped this record. The saying, "It blew my mind," is so overdone, but I don't know what else to say about what it was like when I first heard Chris Potter, and also like realizing how young he was at the time I was hearing him. I mean, even thinking back upon it now, I can't really even comprehend just how damn good he was at such a young age. It's just doesn't, it's incomprehensible. And the thing that stood out to me that made it so different, made him so different from the other players that I was experiencing at that time, Chris's playing, the architecture of it was so strong. I heard something in Chris's playing I didn't find in most other people's playing. Josh also has this narrative ability in his playing that I was drawn to right away. I was drawn to the narrative ability of both of these players. We might think of Chris Potter as having the most incredible facility, since Michael Brecker, etc. But it's not just pyrotechnics. What he's always been able to do is craft incredible motifs, like to take an idea and craft it through a situation. You could chord changes, a song, whatever, a solo, whatever you want to call it. But to just take an idea and bend it and warp it and shape it, but to make it make melodic, interesting, architecturally sound sense in a way I just didn't hear in other players.